you get an opportunity to share that or like anything that you want, obviously,
Uh-huh.
please do, because that's one of the reasons why I invited you to do this. There it is. One of the reasons why I invited you to do this is because for all the years that I've known you, you've always been a pretty active guy. And I wanted to try to get more voices out there of people
Mhm.
that incorporate fitness into their life versus make it something that they got to do.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's nice when we see the new faces and we see guys or girls, whoever, just going out there doing their thing. But sometimes at this stage, like, we're in our 40s now. And it's sometimes hard to, for me at least, just for me, it's sometimes hard to look at somebody and try to follow their design of fitness because it's almost like, and this is just my take, okay? Sometimes I feel like people train, but it's all about them. Everything's just about them. And it should be to a degree. But at this stage, you're married, you got a kid, or you got a career, you got people to take care of. All of a sudden, it's like, yeah, we still need that me time, but how do we do it in a way where we can also share it or make it something that's a part of our life versus like it's totally separate part of our life, like that's that, and then this is this. Like, I look at your videos, man. I sound a little creepy, I know, but
Yeah.
because you put good shit out there, I'm telling you. One of the things that really stood out that made me want to ask you to do this was, so I guess it was one of your employees had taken a video of you, and you're using your rip cords, and you're just going to town with that thing slammed up against the door, and you're just ripping, and you're doing all these movements. And I mean, dude, like I'm a lifter. I like to lift. I like lifting heavy. I like endurance lifting, and because it translates to power for me for like punches and kicks and
Mhm.
stuff. It's just, it's not always that way. It's just my way of thinking. And I looked at you and I was like, okay, that's something that people can do anywhere. Whereas for me, it's like, I got to go to a gym. Like, I got stuff here, but dude,
It's
it's
not the
not,
same.
it's not the same experience. But then when I look at you just going to town on that doorway, I was like, anybody could do that technically. They just need your gear, or they need gear like yours to some degree.
Something, whether it's resistance bands, a suspension trainer, they're so accessible.
Right.
Really, anyone can use it. I mean, obviously, with the pandemic, it limited the ability for a lot of people. I mean, you think of the traditional power lifter who goes in the gym and he's got chalk everywhere and he slams those bumper plates, just drops it. You can't do that on that third floor of the apartment anymore.
No,
But at
no.
least he can maintain mobility, movement, some strength to a degree. I mean, of course, it's going to be a little different when you're not squatting two plates and just dropping it. But
Right.
resistance bands, training outdoors, there's always a way if you're motivated to find it.
Right. Right. So how did you get motivated to find it? Like, what's your do me a favor and share with everybody, like, what's the backstory on how you got started in this particular part of your fitness life?
I mean, when I actually got into the industry, I got into the industry for knowledge. Didn't even think initially that I was going to be doing it as a coach, as a professional. My older brother, who was already in the industry as a facility, in the gym management, he said, hey, we've got a course being run in our facility. Take about a year to run through if you're interested. Was just living in Australia. This is back in sort of 99, 2000. And I always liked to train. I remember when I was 12 years old, got my first sort of set of dumbbells, the old screw on by the sides. So I was
Right.
always doing things back then just because, I liked feeling healthy. I liked being active,
Right.
but didn't have the knowledge behind it, the anatomy knowledge, the movement basis. So did that and then slowly, progressively, started building up some clients. But for me, I just loved being healthy and active. Outside of work. I mean, of course, being a professional in this industry, there's some, there's encouragement to stay healthy. I mean, it's like a
Right.
lot of things. You're going to see a dietitian, for example, and that person doesn't look healthy. They're eating fast food, they're overweight. There might be a backstory, but there's that sort of sense of maybe disconnect.
Right.
So there's
Right.
obviously, a little bit more incentive for me to be a role model, to encourage people. But even aside from that, I like getting up early and going for a run. I like getting up in the morning and just training. It makes me feel healthier, stronger. I've challenged myself
Right.
versus, and it's a great way to start the day off.
Right. Right. Was there ever a time where you weren't so health conscious or fitness
You know what,
orientated?
Alan? No.
What, really? Okay,
Remarkable.
you're a rarity.
Yeah. remarkably, I mean, I can remember from, being such a young age, and I was sort of lucky as a kid. My parents lived in a cul-de-sac, and so we always had, whether it was road hockey or baseball, there was always some sort of sports. So from such a young age, I was always very active.
Right.
I played most sports, and obviously as an athlete, you want to be able to perform, or even not perform. You just want to not get injured.
Right.
And so, that's one more reason why I've always wanted to make sure that, the machine is in its optimal conditioning, both strength, endurance, power, muscle.
Right.
And I've gone through different phases, Alan, where, I focused on just powerlifting, or I've worked, more on endurance. I've got a few marathons and half marathons and, triathlons. But for me, more than anything, it's just about balance.
Right. Right.
Not necessarily overtraining in one specific category.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, man. Who's the person that got you started in this kind of mindset? I mean, you kind of dabbled in it a little bit, but is there a backstory to that on how you got? It seems almost like you got programmed in a good way. Some people get programmed to party, some people get programmed to drink. You just seem to get programmed to
There's a
freaking
lot of
move,
people
dude.
that have role models and people that, they really look up to.
Mm,
I never really have.
interesting.
Which is, I've often thought about that, like someone may ask me, who's your guru? Who's the guy that you follow? I've really never had one. I've always had that sort of self-drive and fire within me to just, also, I love it. So that's
Right.
probably, the bigger backstory is that it just makes me feel really good.
Right. Right. Which obviously, because you've always got energy every time I see you.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal, dude. What do you remember? Do you remember a time in your life where, like, what's the earliest memories you have about fitness? Just you getting into some form of fitness. Like, was it in the cul-de-sac and playing with the other kids that are in there? Like, no matter what, if there was street hockey or whatever they were playing, just getting in that cul-de-sac and playing with the kids. Is that how it really started?
Not really in the fitness. That was more sports. I mean, I remember when I was still almost 4 years old. My older brother was 5, and he was already playing baseball. And
Oh,
you
wow.
weren't allowed to be in the league until you were 5.
Yeah.
And so, I remember that they made an exception just because I was always there, and I wasn't even, 4 years old at the time, and I was playing. So from such a young age, but that wasn't really the fitness. At that age, it was more just sport activity and just the
Right.
love of the game. But I
Right.
remember at my 12th birthday, I got those old, they were almost bronze colored, wider dumbbells. The kind that you
Oh,
threw.
yeah, 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 yeah. I had a
And
pair of those.
I had, and you know what? I still have a few of those at
You
home. Those
gotta be
old things. I
kidding
don't
me.
use them anymore. Of course, those are
Wow. That's like
outdated, but
antiques now.
they're a little antique. But that's where my fitness started.
Got it.
Just at home. And, I mean, and I remember it came with a wider sort of the encyclopedia book, and it was with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Joe Wider. I remember flipping through that, and those were really bodybuilding movements at the time.
Right.
But,
Right.
fast forward all those years later, I mean, for me, it's more on, staying healthy, staying fast, that, a real functional, so that I can lift, throw, jump, whatever I need to do, I'm conditioned and able to do it. I don't want to be big and slow.
Mm,
I feel like the bigger, the slower I get, longer term, it's going to be more detrimental to my
yeah.
body.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's interesting. Yeah. And, when I was younger, I was trying to clock in and get as much weight on as I could. And I think I cranked myself up to about 225, 230. And it was pretty large for me.
Yeah.
And it got so large for me that when it came to taking off my shirt, I couldn't do it. It was weird. Like I was laughing at one time because I was trying to put my shirt on and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, my lats were like out of, and my biceps were out of proportion. I'm like, this is funny for about a week. And then after that, I thought, this is ridiculous. Like, I can't keep asking my ex-girlfriend at the time to be like, honey, can you help me put my shirt on? Like, it just
Well,
wasn't,
often
it wasn't cool.
the bigger you look, you may look good and bulky in a shirt, but you take it off and you can't necessarily see it. I mean, they talk about,
Right.
the dirty bulking. Not
Right.
everyone. I mean, certain genetics are different. For me, I would rather be very fit, lean, and healthy versus just looking big and slow. Not
Right.
necessarily focusing. I mean, nutrition has always been a big component for me.
Right.
I prep a lot of food. Where a lot of people, if you don't come to work or wherever you're going to school with your meal
Yeah.
already prepped, you're setting yourself up to go buy something.
Right.
You're going to get hungry. It's inevitable, right? So
Right.
it's got
Right.
to start with, there's obviously multiple pillars that I live by. And, pillar number one is going to be that nutrition, making sure
Hmm.
you're hydrated. Pillar number two, you got to exercise, and that's going to be your combination of your cardio, combination of your strength.
Hmm.
Number three, the big pillar is the stress. You got to manage it. You got to figure it out. I mean, everyone's got their own stresses,
Right.
and you have to find ways, and like exercise and good eating make you feel better. If your job, if your work, if your relationship are messed up, you got to address it. And
Right.
then the last pillar is your sleep. So
Mm.
you recover, the big four pillars, you got to make sure that there's somewhere aligned in there. And if you're
Right.
not, if one of those are out, it can throw the whole system out of whack.
Are those the four that
Hormonal,
you follow?
those are the big four that I followed for years. Absolutely.
Nice. Now, where did you get that concept from? Because I mean, I've heard different variations of it, but yours in that sequential order, I've never heard of before. That's cool. It's good that you got that handle. It's probably why you always seem so up every time I see you. Like I'm sure you've had stressful days too. But like you said, when you can manage the stress and you can manage the other three out of the four, then you're in good shape. So where did that come from?
I would sort of call it trial and error over the
Yeah.
years, just sort of, feeling and knowing what works. But I mean, stress is just part of life.
Right.
You how do you avoid it? Well, you have to you have to, be humble. You have to, really look at the big picture. And if there's something, whether it's your job, for example, I mean, I remember years ago, this dates back into the late 90s, I worked for Federal Express.
Oh, for
And I was
FedEx. Nice.
a kid, and I was a driver and I was in Richmond. And I remember it was very stressful. And the main reason for the stress is, the plane's leaving at 5:15 p.m. You got to be there by 4:30 to get and I'm getting calls at 4:45 to pick up packages.
Mm.
Exactly, but of course don't speed. So
Wow.
so I
What?
bought that book, and I remember reading it in that big, don't sweat the small stuff.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah.
And that was
Figured out
good.
of that.
And then they came out with the second version, which was don't sweat the small stuff at work.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, that book was almost life changing for me because the way that I saw things was a switch. I knew the things that I couldn't change, I had to accept.
Mhm.
I mean, and it's how I perceived it. Sure, there was still stress, whether it was, work, financial, relationships, but you addressed it versus hiding behind it.
Got it. Got it. The book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. I got to check that out again.
At work, but it was a good one. If you got
At
stressed at
work.
work, take it. I'm telling you, it was amazing.
That is amazing. That's super awesome. That
Yeah.
actually leads me to my next question because I wanted to ask you, like, yeah, so what are the big challenges that you've had to experience and overcome? And the reason why I'm asking you that one is because it's so good to meet people like yourself who are in the industry that are living it even more so than others. Like for me, example, I love the strength aspect, but I haven't been as much into the conditioning aspect only for this period, right? It tends to change for me, but it also comes with its own challenges. For you, I'm sure you've had your own challenges, and I'd want to ask, like, if you could, just whatever was manageable to share some. Like, what were some of the challenges that you've gone through that you've overcome? Not just even so much for you, even though it helps people know you more. I'd want to ask you that because a lot of people that watch this kind of stuff, they're going through some stuff. They're going through their own shit per se.
Mhm.
And it's always nice to hear from a fresh voice what they're doing to have to face their problems, whatever it is, work, relationship, personal, fitness, whatever. And then use fitness or use their life routines to help them get over, get under, get through that problem. What are some of the things that you've had to go through over the
Like,
years?
I mean, I've been married now for 12 years. An example.
12 years. It's been that long, brother. Holy shit.
Example, Alan, of a challenge is,
Five, man.
there we go. Is on my honeymoon, my wife's from Japan. We went to Japan, but we also went to India.
Oh, cool.
So we were up there, and during that honeymoon, my wife was there, and we found a little bit of a lump. So my wife, we found out, we came back that she had breast cancer, and this dates back now, like 11 years ago. So,
Wow.
freshly married, come back, you know, test positive for breast cancer. And so, my wife went through all that process. I mean, she's totally cancer free, great, healthy.
God.
And, so obviously that had challenges, but the exercise was a great vehicle for me to make sure that I was also balanced. I mean, they often talk about, you can't help others if you can't help yourself as well. You have to, it's like the
Right.
medical system, right? If you're a doctor, you got to make sure you're healthy in
Right.
order to be able to help others. So I've always, not necessarily put myself before others, but I always wanted to make sure that I was taking care, you know, of the home, of
Right.
myself, because the healthier I am, the better off I am to help others. My energy's
Right.
better. I'm less likely to be tired and irritable. Um,
Yeah, definitely. That's such a big thing these days, man. Like I see that all the time, and then I see people making, even for myself, on days that I might miss a workout, or if I do one, but it's not my good workout, I'll still won't, I won't have as much calmness in me after to be able to handle life's tackles. And I got a 20-year-old stepdaughter that
yeah.
I'm learning to work with per se,
Mm,
and it's got its own challenges. I love her to death, but the communication is very different. And I can see how using stuff like fitness can really help with just having a calmer mind per se, and just having more readiness to handle the challenges.
absolutely.
So yeah, I totally agree. I agree. Well,
Uh,
thank God for your wife too, man. That
yeah,
she's
she's strong. She's a fighter, right? And she's, grateful that she, is 100% and, well past that now.
yeah.
There's some other challenges, Alan. I mean, we've all had injuries. I mean, I'm a firm believer that injuries are going to happen. It doesn't
Right.
matter who you are, right? But when do you let that injury take over? Or do you actually do active recovery? For example, let's say you've tweaked something in your ankle or your knee or your glute. Are you just going to sit down, or are you going to get up and do that active recovery? I mean, I remember here some time ago, I was, in the gym. This is when I took over this about 3 years ago. The place,
Mm.
there's stuff everywhere, right? And we had excess of these dumbbells that were often, a lot of these were 90 to 170 pounders. There's some
Oh
heavy
wow.
dumbbells, some beasts, right? And
Right.
I remember I'd moved probably 10,000 pounds of dumbbells, maybe more. And it was the last dumbbell that I moved, and I pulled it and I dropped it, and I felt a pop
Oh shit.
in that low back. It's like, you feel that instantly,
Yeah.
your body's that tilting tower. So, right away, immediately into that active recovery, which is part of that strength, starting with slow squats, not just sitting on a bed and complaining how sore it was.
Right.
And I'm telling you, the amount of time that, my recovery is compared to the person potentially that just sits there and complains. You got to do stuff to get yourself back. Same thing with a knee surgery. I still play high end baseball. I mean, I've played in Japan, I've played in the US and places. And I guess probably about 4 or 5 years ago now, and it was the first game of the year, and slid into second base, and the ground was like concrete. It just hadn't broken in. My spike hit the dirt, popped up, safe into second. I take a step off, and I'm like, oh, something doesn't feel right.
Hmm.
I tore the meniscus. You
Oh
know,
shit.
Yeah, just, right away. First time of any major, damage. So, you go through that process, but like anything, surgeries are not always the answer. Sometimes you can just make your body stronger by consistent training.
Right.
Did all the protocols, but the challenge was, if you'd asked me, hey, Darren, I want you to sprint across that road, get ahead of that bus, sprint. There's just certain times with that sort of, it was called the posterior horn. There was a slight tear in there that it would like lock up, and I would just buckle. Just the knee would buckle, I'd fall. So, you know, went back to that orthopedic, and he said, you know what, because you're an athlete, we do recommend the surgery. Post surgery, though,
Hmm.
it was tough.
How long were you out for?
So, I mean, the first 2 weeks, the knee was so filled with liquid because they essentially inject your knee with all that fluid, which is part of, how they allow your knee to operate. And I mean, by 6 months, I was 100% running, jumping, split jumps, jump squats. There was basically no difference. But
Nice.
from day one, I was doing that recovery. And part of the reason I bring up this is people for themselves often set up such big hurdles that if my workout is not, 90 minutes, if I don't squat my 3 plates, it wasn't a success.
All right.
Everything adds up, Alan.
Right.
Right? Whether you do, whether I have a brand new client who's coming to see me and they're totally out of shape, I say, whether you do 5 minutes today and tomorrow you do 8 minutes and the next day you do 10 minutes, it's 8 or 10 minutes more than the zero that you did the day before.
Right.
And it's the same thing. Often you're exhausted. I'm so tired. Work was so tired. Coffee's not working. Sometimes the thing you need the most is just to show up to the gym
Yeah.
or go for that run. You felt so tired. And next thing you know, you had your best run or your best workout ever.
Right. Right. That's so huge, man. Because it's so easy to just be like, oh, I'm going to stay home. And I got to tell you, even to this day, like, I still get my days too, where sometimes I'm like, maybe I'll just skip the gym today. I'm a little sore. But then the moment that kicks in and I know what's coming, I know that if I do that, maybe I can get away with it once, even though I still don't recommend it. But if I did that more than once, do it twice, that's it. It becomes the habit. Like everything's so habitual, right? So even like with the 10 minutes that you're talking about, 10 minutes stacked on each other daily still makes such an improvement overall.
Well, yeah, I
Right?
mean,
Such a
if you're
huge
in
one.
great conditioning in 10 minutes without doing any stopping, you can do a lot of reps, a lot of exercises.
Yeah.
And even
Yeah.
just as a beginner, 10 minutes might be a ton for them. But it's a great
Right.
starting point. It's a success.
Right, right, and that's one of the reasons why I thought your idea on the rip cords and like you're a human trainer.
Hmm.
I thought that was such a good idea because like even now, here we are 10 years later from when I bought my first human trainer set from you. It still looks brand new. Like I still got it hanging up here just on the side of my door, and it's still an awesome in betweener for like when I'm like going from the kitchen to the living room,
Mhm.
or if I can't get to the gym on a particular day, I can still do something. It made me want to ask you, how did you come up with that, man? Because that was, I mean, I've seen TRXs, okay, they're everywhere, but I've tried TRX, and no disrespect to TRX, whoever runs that company. You ever see this video? Don't kill me, okay? Like it's a good company,
It'll make
but
a great product, right? No question. So,
yeah,
Alan, it actually came from, so I was in Japan. This dates back around 2003. And I remember I had one of my clients, he was the president of Prudential Insurance.
okay,
And I always trained him in his apartment, penthouse suite, big place. And I'd have to bring gear. He didn't have a lot. So I'd have to go into the place and buy whatever it was, a resistance band or this. And it was a common theme. I kept buying stuff that appeared to be garbage. It
mm,
would break. And, as a professional, going into a customer's client's home and things are breaking every session, that's a bad place to be.
right, right,
So, came back to Canada, and one of my good friends who at the time, and we both founded the business, we figured there must be a better way. And me being the professional in the training industry, I was able to highly test out these products. And so that was sort of that mandate, was to build, premium equipment that was super portable, lightweight, and that wouldn't break. It's back with warranties because the stuff that was out there was garbage. A lot of it. I'm not including TRX. I mean, even if you look at TRX in their early versions compared to what they make now, it's that progression and evolution of a product that
right,
always gets better. But
right,
from day one with our human trainer, the goal was to design something that anyone could use. I mean, if you're familiar with it, a dual anchor system versus a single, you're more stable with two. You're more balanced.
right,
But if you're on a tree, for example, you can't do that normally, right? You're on a single anchor design. But yeah, really, Alan, it's been quite the near 18 years now since we started it. And I mean, I've seen the industry go like this, where there was such a steep growth period of sales, and to a period where there was a pretty steady decline. And that was because on every corner there was a Steve Nash, a Trevor Lennon, an apartment, community centers, CrossFits, YMCA's. There was just such an abundance. And then,
right.
of course, look, the last 4 or 5 months has been this pandemic, and everyone, was looking for all that fitness gear. They probably threw a lot of it out.
Right.
They bought it, but they've been in the gym. So,
Yeah.
we've seen a very steep growth again. And, a lot of people are concerned with safety being in gyms.
Right.
And, I mean, and so we've still held strong to that belief of, quality is first.
Yeah.
I mean, everything can break. It doesn't matter what you buy. You can buy that incredible brand new Rolls Royce, drive home, and it breaks.
Right.
But you're back with a warranty that you've paid for.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, that thing was solid, man. I remember out of all the things that that I've gotten from you, the only thing that got bent up a little bit was the hook. That was it. So like the bands and everything else, the handles, to this day, I still have all the original pieces. Out of all the things for the 10 years, it was just that one metal hook. And then, you know, when I came and saw you, you instantly replaced it. And that was it. And since then, it's been phenomenal. Like I don't use it every day, but every year I'm on that thing a bunch of times. And it's like I just bought it yesterday. It's a nice piece of equipment. Really, like whoever, if you're the one that designed it, kudos to you, because that was something.
Took years of R&D just to make sure that, you know, what we were producing was going to last the time.
Right. And clearly it has, man, because I don't hear about anybody complaining about that piece of equipment. It's a nice tool. I wanted to close off with this talk with just a little bit, just a last question. With you, when it comes to taking care of clients, helping people, you know, obviously you're a big advocate of that. If you had to give one piece of advice to somebody who was on the fence about taking care of their body, what's something that you would share with them to kind of help them get over the edge? Like they know that they know that they need to work out. They know they need to take care of their bodies, but there's just something in their brain going, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Or maybe it's not that big a deal. You know what I mean? Like you probably, do you ever get clients that say that once in a while or before?
I mean, here's a famous quote that I read, you know, it's much easier to maintain your health than to fight to regain your health. So that's always been a big thing for me was, I mean, you see someone who's gone so far out, they're injured, they're overweight, they're out of shape. Had they just put in, whether it was just 10 minutes, 3, 4, 5 times a week, they'd be that much better off than potentially being in a hospital bed or even not quite that far and having to fight so hard to get it back. Just consistency, Alan, you know, like feeling good about yourself, challenging yourself a little bit more every day and finding something you like. I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to be powerlifting or CrossFit. It might be that for you, you just love being outside. And for that person who loves to go for their walks or go for their jog, I'd say bring a resistance band with you and wrap it around a tree and do some back, do some chest, just, you know, try not to focus on that one trick pony where you're only doing cardio, you know, thinking about balance.
Right. That's really cool, man. You know, you've obviously got a lot to share, and I would love to have people find more about your materials online because you've got a lot of places they can find you on. You want to close this off with just telling them what your websites are?
Sure. Yeah. There's multiple different sites. I mean, my product business would be, you know, www.thehumantrainer.com. As far as reaching out to me, I'm always available. If someone wants to contact me, you can email me at darren@thehumantrainer.com. If you want to call me, you know, you can call me. You can email me. I can give you your number. I'm always happy to give any advice. If someone's got some questions, if they want some help, you know, I'm always here for people.
It's awesome, man. It's one of the reasons why I asked you to do this, because you've always been such a kind guy for all the years I've known you. I mean, for those of you watching, I met Darren, I think way back. It was like 2005, 2007, somewhere there. I can't even remember how far back. It was before you were doing, I knew about your human trainer. Like it was what led me to come to you. And this guy has always been the same guy today. Like the personality you see, the character you see, it's been the same since way back. Just always a nice, friendly, very energetic person. And I forget that he's actually a little bit older than me because he acts so much younger. Just energetically, you've got way more energy, man. And I'm so happy to know.
6 days. So we're approaching 45 pretty quick here. Not yet.
Oh, yeah. So 45 is a new 35 these days, right?
Exactly. 25. No.
25, man. 25. That is awesome. My man, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for the time, Alan. Hey, I'll look forward to seeing you training soon, my friend.